$426 silver. That is not the price. It is a far more important number. We're going to talk about the debt exploding and how the debt clock is springing forward just to catch up. Let's explore. I have to say this right out front because many people misinterpret this. $426 silver. It is not a price. It is not the spot price of silver or where silver's price should be. Indeed, it is not. It is rather a ratio. And we're going to talk about that ratio in this video in an ongoing series that I've done called The Silver and the Debt Clock. I hope you will check that out. It's always interesting to see what has happened in the past with the debt clock and silver. But I'm on usdebtclock.org, and this website has a lot of numbers. In fact, a whole lot more numbers have been added to this since I started doing these videos. And it's a little confusing here, but the number that really matters is this number right over here, the U.S. national debt. The U.S. national debt is increasing at an alarming rate, $31.14 trillion right now. And when you take that into account for every single citizen of the United States, that's over $100,000 per citizen and $268,000 per taxpayer. Now, what leads to the national debt? It is deficit spending. And deficit spending is when we spend more than what we have. Yes, that's really the most simple way I can communicate that to you. And when you think about that kind of spending, there's only one place where that comes from: government. Government initiates this spending, and there's not enough tax revenue, and there's not enough other line items to be able to account for it. So it increases the U.S. national debt and from spending. And so they are having, and this is what leads to inflation, by the way. Inflation is literally the increase in the M2 money supply, and we can see this is what this number is. And why is all this stuff so important? Why is the M2 money supply so important? Because this is what leads to the ratio. There was a time of tightening for a while. In other words, no new money creation. So this number was down to zero. And so then the debt clock people decided to move it to a ratio for 5 years and 10 years. You can see those numbers are very, very high because at one point in time, during the height of quantitative easing, it was over $5,000 and per 1 ounce of silver. Now, what does this ratio mean? Let me just show you here. Let me so you can see exactly. You can go to this website and see exactly what I'm talking about here. When you highlight your mouse over the debt clock number, and then you can see very clearly what it means when you highlight it. It says the year-over-year increase in the U.S. M2 money supply divided by the yearly world production of silver in ounces. I like how they have this. It's highlighted. In some ways, I kind of wish you could click on it and would bring a little pop-up right next to the number, but it shows up right here under the U.S. debt clock when you highlight these numbers. So that is the year-over-year increase. In other words, how many dollars are created in a given year divided by the yearly world production in silver in ounces. And it just goes to show you that for every ounce mined and produced every year, there are $426 bills created. That shows you that how fast the money supply is compared to the amount of silver that's out there. And that makes, I think, one of the best cases for silver as money that you can find, because there are restrictions. The restrictions are based off of the exploration and the mining and the energy and the time it takes to produce an ounce of silver. And they're not producing as much of it compared to dollars out there. And when you think about that, that gives you some insight as to why our founders enacted in the Constitution under Article 1, Section 10, that only gold and silver shall be money between the states. And when you look at that compared to the dollar to gold ratio now, that's over $3,112. Not nearly as extreme, by the way, as the dollar to silver ratio, which is kind of gives you some other insight there. But nonetheless, that number, as well as the paper to silver ratio, also gives you an indication of how many paper versions of silver there are compared to how many ounces there are. The number of paper ounces, silver ounces traded on the major world silver exchanges divided by the actual world production of silver. Those are derivatives, essentially. They represent nothing other than the exposure to silver's price. A lot of people don't understand that, but you think about what's going on. All of the M2 money supply creation, this debt that we've been seeing, and the deficit spending that we've been seeing, it's a bipartisan problem. And it's a bipartisan problem that is continuing to, at an alarming rate right now. We're talking $1 trillion every 100 days. Likely it's probably ramping up even more. In fact, some things, and there's some legislation where they still have not spent all the money yet that's been allocated. They can't spend it fast enough that they can legislate it to put into action. When you think about that, and you look at the U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio, we are at near wartime figures. Only in World War II was it higher, and I think that was a 129 to 1. And now it's 122.94, for all effective purposes, 123 to 1. Look at all the money we spent for all these programs. But they only can mine so much silver per year. So this is something because it's springing forth now, because this number has increased. From last time I've done a video about this, it was 3 times less than this. In fact, it was $100 and some per ounce. We are fully well underway into another round of quantitative easing. They're printing dollars more. It's springing forth even faster than I thought. And as the debt continues to just explode. Now, the debt won't matter until it can't be paid anymore, until we spend all of our tax dollars on the interest on the debt. And here we can see this number. It's close to $1 trillion right now just on the interest and the debt net. And so when our tax dollars, to compare to that ratio, which is a number they don't have there, compared to the interest that is accruing as to how much we're paying for it. But look at this. It's just crazy. But we can only give the government so much flack for what they're doing with our tax dollars. No question about it, because we are a debtor nation. Banking individuals are a massive $1.36 trillion in credit card debt, as you can see here. And per holder, that's $8,384. And it's just getting, especially with these high interest rates that are out there now. And with silver, and getting to a point now where it is now starting to find its way and get finally finding its holding and starting to increase in price. Some are wondering, when is it going to catch up to the actual value proposition that we've been talking about so long on this channel? Because, as the debt clock is continuing to spring forward, as we see this number tick up, it won't be long probably until we see it move. In fact, even so, there's been times where I've done these videos, and the very next day, that number ticks up $10, $20, maybe even $50. We could see this number move to $500 within a week, depending on how they update it. But regardless, this number, the $426, that ratio is so important. And I think, and I hope that it will encourage you as a silver stacker that you are doing the right thing by accumulating silver. Because in the end, there's only so much of it around. And yes, there are a lot of supplies. There's a lot of silver that's being mined. There's a lot of silver that's being produced. There is no shortage of silver for you to stack. You can go to most any bullion dealer and buy an ounce of silver. However, if every American did that, well, it'd be a different story. The supplies would be constrained to a degree. If everybody in the world did it, or all adults in the world did it, it'd be a very much different story. So they say it's about maybe 8, maybe 9, 10 ounces of silver for every person in the world. And you think about it, most of us in this community have well more than 10 ounces of silver. And so that gives you some insight as to how scarce it is compared to other commodities and resources out there. Again, it is the most common of precious metals, far more common than gold, at a rate of 8 to 1 out of the ground, and probably somewhere between 15 to 1 or so, or thereabouts, out of the ground. But still, when you think about it, in the end, it's not really so much about rarity, it's about recognizability, it's about fungibility, and it's about wealth preservation. That's really the bottom line here. So the debt clock is springing forward here with this ratio, and I hope you will consider checking out some other videos in the playlist. I like to bring you the latest news and analysis on precious metals. So if you found this video informative, I hope you will consider pressing that thumbs up button down below and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. And check out the very first video that I did in this series. The number was almost double. In fact, it was double what this number is right now. And there's other times when the number was at 0. And so it's gone all over the place. But it all makes sense when you think about what the Federal Reserve is doing with the money supply in this country. And that's what this video is about, to educate you, the individuals who maybe have been discouraged about silver and thinking about what the price is now and what the number that really matters, the amount of dollars that are printed. That's these things right here. And this is made of paper. This has got more substance than most of the dollars that have been created, because most dollars that are created are digitized. So there you have it. So I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.